Hi, this is Sebastian. You might know my mom, Heather, from Shine.fm. This is the Shine.fm Momcast. Take it away, Mom.
Thanks so much for tuning in for the Momcast today. Hi, I'm Heather, and I am joined by a very special guest. Her name is Amber Residori. Amber, introduce yourself to everyone.
Hello, I'm Dr. Amber Residori, and I am the Dean for the School of Life and Health Sciences at Olivet Nazarene University in Bourbonnais, Illinois.
So, Amber, I am about 2 years away from my daughter being ready to start college. She's a sophomore. And we've just have started to talk about what do you want to do with your life, you know? And I think she wants to go to college. I mean, those are things that we've talked about, but she kind of goes, well, what do you think I should do? And I'm like, no, I will not have therapy sometime later in my life when you go, you told me you wanted me to be. No, we're not doing that. But I also don't want to go into this season feeling the pressure of my 15, 16, 17-year-old having to have it figured out. Because let's be honest, I didn't feel that pressure when I was her age, and I changed my major 3 times when I was in college. So let's talk about like where we're at right now as a family. How do we help? And what does it look like for that pressure to not be applied? Can you kind of help expound a little bit on that?
Sure. Yeah, I think there's a couple of social messages being sent to parents and definitely to our high schoolers. And one of those is that everybody's supposed to go to college. And I think that people would be surprised as a dean at a university to hear me say that I don't think every kid has to go to college.
Right.
I think there are some wonderful trades, and I think that not every kid is wired to go to college, and you can have some lovely careers that don't involve going to college. So first that. Second is I think that all of us have probably underestimated the amount of pressure that students are feeling and absorbing related to feeling the demands of having it all figured out. I think about high school is 15 to 18 years old,
Right.
and I did not have my career figured out,
Right.
the direction of my life. This is what I'm going to be when I grow up,
Right.
all ironed out at the ripe old age of 18. And for some reason, families and kids really feel that. And part of it is college costs a lot of money. It's a huge investment, and they don't want to squander that. And so I would say that there's a lot of pressure that kids are feeling. So yeah, I think that you, as a parent, understanding that it may not look like it, but they're putting a lot of thought into, oh no, what if I don't have it figured out?
Right.
The other thing that's happening is I think they're watching their peers. And there are kids who look like they've had these aha moments. The heavens have split, and they've had Saul on the road to Damascus moments, and they feel like their friends have it all figured out. And I think that happens for a couple of kids. But I think that for the majority, they don't know. And they think they know because of a couple of moments.
Right.
That was a really cool experience when I did this in class. And so maybe I'll be a doctor, maybe I'll be fill in the blank. And they need a lot more guidance and help with that than we realize.
And that is one thing that you actually do with Olivet Nazarene University is you work with students. So let's talk about students that are starting to look for colleges. And you have a conversation like I had with my daughter, and you say, well, what do you want to do? And they say, I don't know. What do you think I should do? Or should I go to this college? Where do we go from here? What do we do? So she decides she wants to go to college. She has no idea what she wants to do. What do we do?
Right. Once you're clear, once your student is clear that they want to go to college, the first thing I would say is she doesn't have to know what she wants to major in. And we'll talk a little bit about that because there are a couple of majors that you do want to decide on. But for the most part, they don't have to know, which is a surprise.
Right.
The second is start visiting colleges your junior year. Okay. And again, later in the conversation, I'll kind of give you a tips list. But I would, 2 years ago, I started meeting at Olivet with the students who would visit our campus who were undecided. And I only visit with those students 2 days a week. We divide it up. And in 2 years, I've already met with 200
Wow.
of those students. And so I think the other misnomer is students think they're the only one out there.
Right.
And they're not. And I also think that sometimes people believe that they're all laid back, kind of filing their fingernails, and they're really like lazy about this. What I've learned is that maybe of the 200, there were 5 that really were like, yeah, I'll get there when I get there. The rest, the 195, others were incredibly conscientious. They are very aware that they can be anything in the whole world, and they are so afraid they'll choose wrong.
Yeah.
They're terrified that they'll waste their parents' money. They're scared to death they'll add a semester. And more than anything, what if I pick wrong and I spend the rest of my life doing a job I hate?
Oh, wow.
And these are the thoughts that
That's a lot of pressure. That's huge.
Yes.
That's huge. All those little thoughts right there for an 18-year-old, that's like a massive weight on their shoulders. Massive.
Yes. And when I say that to them in a room, they tear up. Or their mom does, right? Like, because I think for the first time, they are having an insight into the amount of thinking.
Yeah.
And then we talk about their high school graduation party. And I say to them, so you're about to graduate high school? Yeah. And so they've imagined this party where they're going to say, they're going to be asked, so what are you doing after high school? I'm going to college. And everybody is very approving. And then they say, what are you going to study? And they say, I don't know yet. And they're very afraid and aware of the glances that are going to happen. And reassuring them that it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And they don't have to have that all figured out. I have found that this group of students are the furthest from lazy. They are not just conscientious, they're very courageous. At Olivet, we will admit about 750 freshmen in the fall. And of those freshmen, 90 to 100 will show up at the front door undeclared. They'll be undecided, although every student believes they'll be the only one. And then of the remaining 650 students, probably 350 of them will change their major at least once.
Oh, wow.
And so of a freshman class of 750, really 450 aren't really sure.
Don't really know.
Yeah. And when you think about you and your friends at 18, how many of us really knew?
Right.
So those odds are not that surprising.
Right.
It's not because, they're a mess and they don't know. They're 18.
Right.
And college should be a time of exploration. It should be a time of figuring it out. Now, none of us want college to be a waste of time or money.
Right.
It is an expensive investment. And so it's really important for that time of exploration and discovery to be structured and to be discovery that is directed towards something because it can't last forever.
Right. Yeah, right.
None of us want that.
No, exactly.
And so helping them understand that being undecided is okay for a season.
Right.
And then also helping them realize they should be asking questions. They should show up on college visits and ask, how do you handle students who are undeclared? How do you handle your advising process? What happens when a student doesn't have a major and then declares a major? Those are good questions so that you understand if my child doesn't have that quite figured out, how much are they going to direct? How much are they going to help and guide? Or is this going to be a free fall?
Right.
That is going to add semesters and worry and cost.
Now, do you think, let me ask you this, do you think that I went to a larger university, I went to Western Michigan University, also spent some time at Michigan State. I never felt like I had somebody I could talk to. Now, those are pretty big universities. I think when I was at Western, it was like 25,000 students or something. Do you feel like if you have a child who's undecided, it would be better for them to be in a smaller university setting? Or, I mean, what's your kind of gut reaction to that?
Boy, that is That's an excellent question. And I'm probably a smidge biased only because I'm at a small school.
Right.
And I know how carefully we hold them.
Right.
So, for example, I am an advisor. I'm a dean, but I'm also an advisor.
Mm-hmm.
So students, remember those 350 who come in and then they change their major?
Right.
Many of them jump into another major. So within that first semester or second semester, they realize, oh, I wasn't supposed to do this. I was doing this. But there are students who move into undecided. I'm one of the faculty who act as an advisor for those students. We're very purposeful then with those students.
Right.
So at Olivet, our process is when the freshman class arrives, every freshman is assigned to a connections group that meets every Friday. If you're undecided, your connections group are also undecided students.
Okay, you're all together then.
Right. So then you can begin to explore different assessments. You can look at your gifts and talents, look at careers that match those, look at careers that don't necessarily match those. So it can be a very guided process. If you are undecided, you also get an advisor who works with students who are also undecided. In our system, and bigger schools have professional advisors. So then they're really versed in specific majors. At Olivet, our advisors are our faculty. So if you are a business major, you are going to get a business faculty.
Oh, wow. Okay.
If you're a psychology major, you're going to get a psychology faculty. So you're going to get an expert in that discipline who's going to sit down and map with you your plan. And different students have different plans. Some students want to finish college as fast as possible. Some students want every possible opportunity. They want to major in 3 things, study abroad. They want 2 minors, right? So it's important for us to meet with that student and find out what's important to them. If they're undecided, then they get advisors like me, where we sit down and we start with that giant, I can be anything in the world, and we start narrowing that funnel. And we begin to look at, so if you were interested based on assessments, gifts and talents, and usually if you run those assessments and you match it to careers, the students will say, oh my goodness, I've always thought about this one, and this one. It's usually on their list. And so then you can pull up the degree requirements and begin looking at what would that look like for you. And so we can map their courses and say, ooh, if you did this one, you would need this science, but if you did this one, it would be this one. So let's hold off on that gen ed. This one is going to have this class, and this class. Or let's put you in that introduction class. And at the end of a semester, they come back and they'll say, I didn't like that at all.
Right.
Okay, well, that's probably not your career.
Right.
Or I loved that. Did you love it enough to declare it, or do you want to move to the next class? And while we also keep working on general education courses and maybe even a second major, like a different major that you still haven't ruled out.
Right.
And so we really try to be purposeful about satisfying gen ed and graduation requirements, not waste time,
right?
But at the same time, keep working them towards their interest. And they usually declare, sometime their freshman year, sometimes their sophomore year, and then they move to a faculty advisor who's in that discipline.
Right.
And all of that transfers over with them.
Do you see, have you been able to kind of track, because I know that ultimately you want to have successful students, and a successful student means they ultimately have to declare something and they have to get a major, they have to, so from those students that are undecided, how do you see those, and that you guys work with, how successful do you see in them reaching their goals? I don't know if you've even tracked that. We didn't really talk about that beforehand, but how successful are they by taking that time to actually figure it out instead of, like you said, coming in? What do you see? What are some characteristics that you see in those students later on?
So every university is responsible to track their retention and graduation rates. And we have good statistics on both of those.
Yeah.
But I would say, remember, these are our conscientious kids.
Right.
And so with all that conscientiousness usually comes angst because they are not your impulsive decision makers. And what's kind of fun to me is these are kids that maybe parents worry about because they haven't decided, right? They're in high school and they don't know what they want to do.
Right.
So should we send them to college?
Right.
The truth is you've raised a really great kid that doesn't jump, right? Like, boom, I'm going to jump. And I'm courageous enough to not just make something up to make everybody feel good. I am going to take my time and make a decision. Isn't that a great adult quality?
Yeah, that is. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Not impulsive. That's for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you watch them be very methodical. They ask good questions. Or they're your kid that needs a little more guidance. And they're a lot more sure of that decision usually.
That's good.
We build great relationships. Sometimes I have kids, they'll say, but I want you to stay my advisor. I'm like, oh, for Pete's sake, you know where my office is, right?
Right.
Like,
If you need something, I'm here for you.
Exactly. Declare your major. You know what you want to be when you grow up now. Go on now. Get out of the nest. We love you and you know where to find me.
Exactly.
But the moment that they finally figure it out and the skies didn't split.
Yeah.
For them, it was a much more logical, methodical process that required confirmations. I need to cross things off of a list. I need to do a pros and cons. There's nothing wrong with that. We make a lot of big decisions in our life.
Yep.
Doing just that process.
Right. Yep.
So I applaud those students. And I think that there's usually a lot more satisfaction. They swing, maybe not more, but there's a lot of satisfaction because they have a lot of angst. They are terrified they're going to choose wrong.
Interesting. So let's talk about those. You mentioned a little bit earlier those three majors that. The other thing that you and I've talked about too that I wanted to mention was, like you said, if you and you're going to share this in a little bit about the homework and looking at the majors and how you can do that at almost any university, but at Olivet. But like what I loved about, and you said this off mic, so I'm going to have you say it now. But like, if you're not loving science, don't pick a major in science. Like if you look at those lists as a student and say, oh wait, that has 5 science classes, I do not want to be doing, like, really look at, like, yes. And I want to say to parents, and I say this to myself as much as I say it to anybody else, but like, let your child figure this out. Like, I don't want her to come back at some point and say, I wish that you wouldn't have made this decision for me. I really do want to encourage her and talk to her, but I don't want to make this decision for her because I really do want her to say at some point, I'm so glad I struggled through that. I'm so glad I figured that out on my own because, like you just said, they're going to be so much happier down the road when they have figured it out. There's so much more of a level of satisfaction for her. But let's talk about those 3 majors that if your child is even thinking about considering that it's easier to start out with those 3 and change rather than waiting.
Yes. So those 3 majors, and they're pretty much at any university. Number 1 is engineering. Engineering, a good engineering program is accredited by ABET, and they are very clear in what courses and requirements are required. And so it's tough to finish an engineering program in 4 years. And so usually they're either going to come in with some high school credits or some CLEP, or take some summer, or there might be an extra semester. It's possible to do it in 4, but it's very tight. And so if you're looking at engineering, that's one of those majors, you're better off to declare it. And if a semester in, you figure out, oh, I'm really not supposed to be an engineer, it's much easier to move out of engineering and declare something else.
That makes sense. Then
come in and kind of find your way and then jump into engineering and expect to finish on time. So that's one. Number 2 is nursing. Nursing is one of my areas. Nursing is credit heavy. It's tight, but it's not crazy tight. What the trick with nursing is it's high stakes. None of us want to be treated by a pretty good nurse. Right. And
exactly.
So every nursing program is also accredited, and you can't progress to the next nursing courses if you haven't passed with a certain grade.
Ah, okay.
And so what you can find is, oh no, I got to add a semester because I got to hold off. I'm taking gen eds this semester because I have to repeat that class.
Right.
And so nursing is one of those that you want to come in as a freshman, declare nursing. It's much easier to say, oh, I should have been a social worker.
Right.
I want to do this side of caring for people.
Right.
Much easier to do it that way than it is to come in undeclared and then try to get you into nursing and finish on time.
Right.
Remember, we don't want to waste time or money. It's important. The third is, at least in the state of Illinois, teaching. That surprises people. The Illinois State Board of Education is very clear about courses and requirements. And so really teaching music, art, elementary, secondary is pretty credit heavy also. And so it's easier to come in and declare teaching, decide, oh, wait, I don't want to do teaching. It's easier to get out of it than it is to get in it and finish on time.
Okay.
And of course, you can declare those at any point.
Right.
But those are three majors that if they're on your list, it's much easier to start there.
Just in case.
Yeah.
Then. And actually, too, probably figure out whether or not, like you said, you take one engineering course and you go, oh, no, I just know, I thought it was, but it's not me. It's so much easier to go back after having even just that one course. So.
Yeah. And we're used to students changing their mind. Right?
This isn't a surprise to the staff and faculty at a university, right?
Yes. And quite honestly, 18 to 21 is an awesome time in your life. And I say to parents, go visit schools, walk those campuses. If you have a son or daughter that wants to go to school, do campus visits and walk those campuses. Number one, pay attention to how you feel. I believe with all my heart that God has roommates, professors, job opportunities. He's preparing. So go walk it and feel it. That's a time in your kid's life where other adults are going to speak in to your son or daughter in a way that you can't. They need that. And so pay attention to the adults that are going to be surrounding your kid. And they're gonna be making huge decisions. They're deciding on their values. They're solidifying all of that. And so pay attention. We get they're going to change their mind. It's a great time in life to change their mind.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Before you pick a career.
Exactly. So what's some homework? I know you already talked about that you work with students, but what is it that you kind of have them do to help them narrow down this process? I'm sure you talk to them and I'm sure you meet with them, but like there are some specific homework things that you give them to have them go through that we're going to walk through so that they don't necessarily have to meet with you. Wouldn't that be amazing? You get like 200 people contact you. Will you meet with me? But we're going to give you that path to kind of figure this out in any college or university that your child might be interested in.
Absolutely. So I'll speak about Olivet, but you could really do this with any school.
Right.
So at Olivet, if you went to olivet.edu, you would be at our website. And if you clicked on academics, I'm very visual, and you would see a beautiful website with like over 120 areas of study. You could click on any one of those. And I say to students who come and visit us, those conscientious students, and the fun part is I give them this homework and I never know if they really do it, but because they're conscientious, I can see in their eyes they do. Yes, I love it.
That's so funny.
Because they're so worried, right? They want to pick right. Olivet.edu, go to academics, and I say to them, get a pen and a piece of paper and click on and write down, of that 120, write down what you think you would maybe want to major in. And I got to tell you, if you have 120 options, there aren't very many more options than that, right?
Right.
But you can do that at any school.
Right.
My guess is we've just taken, you can be anything in the whole world, and we narrow it down to about 7 to 10. I tell them, do not make yourself fall in love with anything on that list. If you're picking something to do as a career, do not force yourself to love it. So that's step one. Step two, stay at olivet.edu/registrar, and then go to degree requirements.
Okay.
And at any school, you should be able to find the degree requirements for the 7 to 10 that you like. A degree requirements page should give you the gen eds, which are going to look the same, gen eds or gen eds, for that university. And then it's going to give you the list of courses that are required for that degree.
Right.
That page is golden for a couple of reasons. One, it's going to give you the list of courses. If there's 5 math courses, if there's Calc 1, Calc 2, Calc 3, statistics and advanced statistics, and you hate math, you are probably not going to love a job associated with
Right.
that degree.
Exactly.
Cross it off your list. So there's information about courses. The other is, at least on our degree requirements page, you'll see the number of credits it takes to graduate with that. So on one side, if right now our gen eds are about 45 credits, and then let's say the major is 52. Well, if it's 45 to 52, you're looking at 90 to 100 credits.
Right.
If it's 120 to 128 credits to graduate at a given university, you know how much time you have to be undeclared.
Right.
Can I be undeclared for 1 semester, 2 semesters? It's a 70 credit major and it's 120 to graduate. I need to walk in declaring this. There's a lot of information on that page.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I think people underestimate that. The third step is, I would say, go find that course catalog. Go find the university's catalog. We name courses things sometimes that are not very helpful.
Don't make sense.
Right. And we don't mean to, right? So sometimes you don't know if you would like a course. So go to the course catalog and read there's usually a couple of sentences, description, read about that course, because that's going to help you know, would I even like the courses I have to take to get this degree?
Right.
My guess is you've taken 120 down to 7 to 10, down to 3 to 5. And then I would think about, okay, so now if I go to the Bureau for Labor and Statistics, what is the job outlook for those 3 to 5 careers?
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Are they shrinking? Are they growing? Are they in demand? What will be the wage I can expect to earn? Do I need to go get a master's degree? Do I need to make sure that there is an accredited program for my bachelor's degree? If I get my bachelor's at an accredited program, can I get my master's in 1 year instead of 2.5? You can begin to really make educated decisions. And remember, that's what we want.
Right. Exactly.
Nobody wants to waste time and money.
Right. Yeah.
And so there's other things that you can begin to ask yourself. Values questions. What do I want to wear to work? Do I want to dress up? Do I want to wear a uniform? Do I want to wear high heels?
That's
Do I want to
interesting.
wear comfortable shoes? Do I want to sit at a desk? Do I want to walk around? Do I want to do presentations? Would I shrivel if I had to be in front of people? Do I want to talk to people? Do I want to be in the quietest cubicle in the basement of somewhere and never talk to people? There are jobs that match those things right there that rule careers in and out, that I think sometimes students don't ask themselves, that begin to like, oh, yeah, I'm not wired to be a doctor. I'm wired to be in the lab at the hospital and run medical tests on things.
Right.
Well, okay, those are both biology majors, but those are different.
They're very different. Yeah. Right.
And that's fine.
Yeah. Exactly.
You want to do a career you're going to love.
Yeah, exactly. Because you don't want to see people get into a situation, your own child get in a situation where they do something that they don't want to do. So I actually, what I'm so encouraged by, Amber, is that I think there is a lot of pressure that our society, and we started out the conversation talking about that, and I have felt that, even though she's a sophomore, you know what I mean? I've still felt that, like, well, what if she doesn't have it figured out? Like, what do we do? And for me, it wasn't even just like, well, we failed as parents, but like, well, what do we do?
Yes.
Like, what do we do to help her? Because I want to make sure she does make a really good decision. So one question I had for you, because I want to answer it, so I want to hear your answer. What did you want to be when you were 18?
Oh, I was kind of one of those lucky kids. I picked, so my bachelor's is in psychology. My master's is in social work administration.
Okay.
And my doctorate is in education. But I knew I wanted to work with people. And I ended up picking right. And I think it honestly was accidental. I wish I could tell you that, like, I was so, but it honestly, it was a sociology teacher in high school that pulled me aside and said, you are made to work with children and adolescents.
Oh, wow.
We had done an exercise where we brought in kids and we did a role play and we did some stuff. And he said, I hope you know that. And he had no idea how he had prophesied really over my life. And I had felt it. I was one of those bashful, kind of quiet, flew under the radar. And I had kind of thought maybe, and it was a confirmation that I needed.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and he was right. I ended up with a career working with adolescents.
Right, yeah.
And loved it. But I can't tell you that it was because I was super...
You had it figured out, right? That you necessarily had it figured out, right? Yeah, it just kind of, yeah. Well, I wanted to be Connie Chung when I was 18. So I grew up in that era where she was the first newswoman, and I was so impressed by that as a young girl, like, because all I had seen is men on the desk, and she was the first woman. And so I was sure I wanted to be a journalist. So I went to Michigan State University for my first year, took one journalism class, and said, nope, not for me. And so it's interesting what you said about like the engineering and the nursing. That kind of resonated with me because I literally took one class in journalism and said, nope, that's not going to be me. So then I started to pursue teaching. I knew I wanted to be in English, like a creative writing person, or, you know, I was creative in that aspect, but I also loved like public speaking and that kind of thing. And so I wanted to be like a high school teacher. So I worked really hard at Western because I transferred to Western, Michigan University, and I got into the teaching program, the education program. I took one class in that and said, nope, not for me. But I will tell you what I did do in that situation was I did an internship with a teacher just to see what it was like to actually, like someone had recommended that to me after I had changed from journalism.
That's great advice.
But I got into the classroom and I was like, no. And then I took the one class that I had finally gotten into, like after I got into the College of Education at Western, and I was like, nope. And so I went to my advisor and said, okay, I don't really know what I want to do. And I was a junior at that point. So I was figuring it out still. But I said, I know that I want to do communications and I know I want to be creative writing. So what can we do? And I ended up with an organizational communications degree with a creative writing minor.
Nice.
Just kind of more human resources, but clearly not what I'm doing now.
Right.
But I still have the communications background and I still have the creative writing part. I write spots for the station and I have to come up with creative content and I have to communicate well. But again, I feel like it was, and it's exactly what you said, was you continue to pursue the things that you really love, like the communication classes. I loved the creative writing where I could write short stories and poems and get feedback from other people. That was all something that resonated with me. I was like, ooh, I like that. You know, and like you said, you take a class and you're like, nope, I don't like that. So I'm not going to do that. You know, so I took as few science and math classes as I could to get out of it. And then I took all the communications and writing classes. So that really, what you said resonated with me even at 45 to kind of look back on my own. But I graduated in 5 years. I got a degree. We figured it out. So like, yes, you don't want to waste that time and money. So don't put that pressure maybe on your child. Like I want to give our moms permission and parents permission to say, you don't have to put that pressure. It is going to be okay. And if people give you a problem with it, they're probably not your people.
Perfectly said.
You know?
And the pressure, there are careers that when our children say them, we smile. And there are careers that when our children say them, they see the flash go across our eyes and they see that we worry, right? I've heard parents say in meetings, oh, I don't know if she'll ever be able to move out of my house on that salary.
Oh, wow.
Or I don't know if he'll ever be able to provide for a family if he chooses that. And I think, what if that's what he's called to do?
Right.
And I can tell you, as someone who was a social worker for 20-some years, I made a great living at it. I really did. And I think that sometimes there's stigma and there's worry that we don't know we're projecting onto careers.
Right.
That when our kids are passionate and they're called,
right,
they work it out.
Right.
And they make a living and they move out of your basement, right?
Right.
Because they're working inside of what they love.
Well, I was just going to say, it's the passion part. Yeah. It's the passion part that you got to really help your child find, is that passion part. Because you're right. I mean, people who, you know, that look as though they don't have that, you know, a business degree or whatever people's perception is of someone that can provide for their family, that's not necessarily the case. Because I would say, I mean, there's not a lot of money in Christian radio, but I'm making it. You know what I mean? You're making it, but it's not like, I don't know. I do think that we as parents think like, and I'm glad that this conversation has kind of made me think back to who I was at 18 and how, and I've already talked about this, but how there weren't those expectations on us. But like, there's a level that I'm kind of, and I don't think a lot of parents do this, living vicariously through, like that whatever she achieves or whatever they achieve is a clear reflection on me. No, it's not. No, it's not. You know, like she gets to decide that. They get to decide that, and I will help them with that. But whatever they decide to do, as long as they figure it out, it's their passion and what they love to do, we got to trust and believe that it'll be okay.
Right. And if who they become is a reflection of you, wouldn't you want it to be that they're happy?
Well, right, exactly. Right,
like,
exactly.
Don't you want them to live this full, meaningful life?
Yes.
And I got to tell you, if it's ministering to other people, if it's serving,
right.
You know, and I want our physicians, because we graduate pre-med kids that go on and they do great things. I want them serving.
Right.
Right. I want it to be a calling.
Right.
Isn't that what we want for our kids?
Not just to figure it out, not just to make a decision.
Yeah.
Right. And it's okay if they don't. Oh, that's so good. So if people want to get more information about Olivet or getting in contact with you about coming to visit Olivet, or if their child is undeclared, what are some ways that they can get connected?
Perfect. So I would say, first of all, visit. If your child is sure they want to go to college, do visits your junior year.
Right.
That's the appropriate time to start doing visits. Second of all, when you visit, I would ask about how do you handle majors? How do you handle advising? How do you handle if they're undecided? Ask those questions. Olivet does have a magazine. We have a parent guide that if you're interested in it, or if you have any questions, I would reach out to admissions@olivet.edu.
Okay.
And we'll put that in the notes, right?
Yeah,
Heather?
we will.
Okay. So in that parent guide, there are 3 things that I think are huge. Number 1, there's a list of questions that a parent and student should ask when they go on college visits.
Okay.
So take it with you wherever you visit.
Right.
Second is there's the map of your senior year of high school. What should you be doing when? Isn't that good?
It's like when you planned out, you had those dates for your wedding. You know, you're like 3 months out and 6 months out, and now it should be the same for your child's senior year.
That's exactly what it is.
That's amazing.
And as a first-generation college student, I'll tell you what, we did not have that. My parents, we were flying by the seat of our pants, and somehow we landed.
You made it.
Yes. The third thing that's in there is navigating financial aid. If you haven't, if it's your first kid, if it's the first kid you've ever sent to college, if you haven't been associated with financial aid, all of that's changed. So when should we be doing that? It's a lot earlier than you remember from when you did college. Okay. So those 3 things are in that magazine. So reach out to admissions@olivet.edu. The third thing is if you want to come visit Olivet, if you go visit that website, if you want to do the homework that I talked about, olivet.edu, anywhere on that website is you can click for campus visits. And it's really self-serve. It's kind of nice. You can go and see when we're having campus visits, and you can schedule those. You can and what they'll do is they'll set up a day for you. So if you want to meet with a biology professor, if you want to meet with an engineering professor, if you want to meet with a nursing professor, and you that whole day of meet with someone from admissions, from financial aid, so that you get a sense of what would our financial package look like? If you want to sit in on a class, we will let you, so you can schedule a visit. So if you want to reach out, if you have questions, if you want that parent guide, if you come and visit us, ask us about Pathways U. It's a new thing that we're doing where once a student is admitted to Olivet, or if you come visit us, it's a little more intense, but we have assessments. And then we match it to careers, and it follows a student all the way through when they're alumni and alumna. And then we will post, employers can post job opportunities. So even our alumni can look for job opportunities. So it is from the point of, I wonder what I want to be, and my gifts and strengths, and what careers does it match, all the way through, I've graduated now, and people who want Olivet grads, they can post jobs, and it still links them.
Wow,
so it's
that's really cool.
It is a very cool thing.
That's awesome.
So visit us, find out if you want.
Yeah.
I'd love to have you.
This has been great, a lot of information. And I think even just to have this kind of sigh of relief from this mom who has a sophomore who knows that we don't have to have it all figured out, and to actually encourage my daughter to not feel like that pressure is there is so good. So thank you so much for joining me on the Momcast today.
Oh, thank you, Heather.